Try to remember your third birthday. Not a photograph of it. Not a story your mother told you so many times that it became yours. The actual moment. The candles, the cake, the room. You can't. For almost everyone, the footage stops somewhere around age 3 or 4. Before that, there is nothing. Not a blurry recording, not a faded clip, just absence. And here is the part that should bother you. Your brain was not asleep during those years. You were learning to walk. You were learning to speak. You were forming the entire architecture of who you would become. So why did none of it survive? The real answer is far stranger than simple forgetting. Scientists have a name for this gap. They call it infantile amnesia. Sigmund Freud was the first to put a label on it back in 1899, though his explanation involved repressed desires and turned out to be mostly wrong. The phenomenon itself, though, was real. He had noticed what every parent eventually notices. A child lives those early years in vivid, total presence. The adult that child becomes carries almost none of it forward. For a long time, the simplest explanation seemed obvious. Babies just don't form memories yet. Their brains are too undeveloped, too busy with basic survival to bother with something as complicated as recording events for later use. That explanation is wrong. Psychologist Patricia Bauer at Emory University has spent years proving it wrong. In her experiments, infants as young as 9 months watch an adult perform a simple sequence of actions with a toy, like making a puppet ring a bell, then putting it to sleep under a blanket. Weeks later, with no reminder, the same infants are handed the toy. Many of them reproduce the exact sequence. Ring the bell, lay it down, cover it up. That is not instinct, that is memory. So the storage system works. Babies absolutely encode what happens to them. The information goes in. The mystery is not why babies fail to remember. The mystery is why adults fail to retrieve it. Here is where the story gets interesting. Your hippocampus, the part of your brain that stitches moments into long-term memories, is still under construction for the first several years of life. Picture a library being built while books are already being delivered. The shelves are not finished. The cataloging system barely exists. Books get dropped somewhere in the unfinished structure. New neurons are flooding into the hippocampus at an extraordinary rate during early childhood. This process is called neurogenesis, and while it sounds like a good thing, here it works against you. Each new neuron has to wire itself into existing circuits, and in doing so, it can overwrite or scramble the connections holding older memories in place. Your brain, in its rush to grow, may be erasing its own early drafts. Neuroscientists studying this in animal models have found something remarkable. Speed up neurogenesis artificially in an adult mouse, and old memories become harder to retrieve. Slow it down in a young mouse, and early memories last longer than they normally would. The very process that builds your brain in childhood appears to be the same process erasing its earliest output. But construction alone does not explain everything. There is a second piece to this puzzle, and it has nothing to do with neurons. It has to do with language. Carole Peterson, a memory researcher who has spent decades interviewing young children about their own pasts, has tracked the same children over years to see which memories survive and which vanish. Her research points to something counterintuitive. A memory becomes more likely to last once a child has the words to describe it. Think about what that means. A 2-year-old experiences an event in a fully embodied sensory way. Fear, joy, the smell of a room. But without language to organize that experience into a narrative, the memory has nowhere stable to live. It is a story with no sentences. Once children develop the vocabulary to say, We went to the beach and I was scared of the waves. That event gains a structure strong enough to survive into adulthood. This is why your accessible memories rarely begin before age 3 or 4. That is roughly when children develop enough narrative language to convert raw experience into something memory can hold on to long term. So which is it? Is it the unfinished hippocampus, or is it the missing language? The honest answer is both, tangled together, reinforcing each other. There is a third layer to this, and it might be the strangest one. Cornell psychologist Chi Wang has spent years studying how culture shapes the age of your earliest memory. In her research comparing American and Chinese adults, the average age of first memory differed by nearly a full year. American adults, on average, recalled earlier and more detailed memories than their Chinese counterparts. The difference was not biological, it was conversational. In cultures where parents engage in detailed, elaborate reminiscing with their children, asking questions like, "What did we see at the zoo? Do you remember the elephant?" Children build richer, earlier autobiographical memories. In cultures with a more collective, less individually elaborated style of family storytelling, that same window stays shorter and starts later. In other words, your earliest memories were not just recorded by your brain. They were partly built through conversation, by being talked through, asked about, and repeated until they hardened into something retrievable. Which raises an unsettling question. How many of your earliest memories are even real? Once a memory has been told and retold by your family, your brain struggles to separate what you actually witnessed from what you were told you witnessed. A photograph you have seen 50 times can fuse with a real moment until you can no longer tell which parts came from your eyes and which came from someone else's description. Psychologists studying false memory formation have shown just how easily a vivid, confident memory can be constructed entirely from suggestion. You are not lying when you describe it. You genuinely believe you remember. Your brain cannot always tell the difference between living a moment and being told about one enough times. So the 4-year-old gap in your memory is not really a gap at all. It is a construction site where neurons are still wiring themselves into place, where language has not yet caught up to experience, and where the people around you are quietly shaping which fragments survive and which dissolve. Think about what that means for the years you do remember. None of those memories are pure recordings either. Every time you recall something, you are not playing back a tape. You are rebuilding the moment from fragments, influenced by who you are now, what you have been told since, and what you need that memory to mean. Memory was never a filing cabinet. It was always closer to a story you keep quietly rewriting. So no, you cannot remember your 3rd birthday. Not because nothing happened. Something happened every single day. You laughed, you were frightened, you fell down and got back up. All of it fully felt in the moment. But the brain that experienced those years was still being built. The words to hold them were still arriving, and the people around you were already shaping which version would survive. You were never missing those years. You simply were not yet a brain built to keep them.